Yo guys, today we're going to be investigating whether Marlow, the #1 Minecraft PvPer of all time, is secretly cheating. I'm here to make an unbiased analysis of the most suspicious clips of her and the context of her gameplay, and at the end of the video, I'll give my final verdict. But before we begin, even if you do think she's cheating or not, please do not harass or harm anybody mentioned in this video. Anyway, let's begin. She's been playing 1.9 PvP at a high level for over 5 years now, where she's mainly played Crystal PvP, however has played other game modes too. Throughout that time she's been an owner for the tier list, but that was co-owned by Learn and Enrico. Because of this, she's never had full control of the tier list and has never been immune to screen sharing to check for cheats. However, throughout this time, before the tier list split, Marlow faced a lot of drama and harassment about possibly cheating in the past, like around 2021. Where according to her own video, she says she was screen shared countless times for cheats and had been proven clean, but had also been taken advantage of where someone put a rat in her PC and she was doxxed too from all the hate she received. This obviously means that she has barely any trust for anybody when it comes to screen sharing nowadays. However, when the tier list split, she now owned her own tier list and didn't have to abide to anybody else's authority anymore. This is good for her safety, however this also means that she can potentially cheat without ever needing to agree to a PC check. I can agree that the owner of a tier list shouldn't be able to play for themselves at such a high level, because there's always a slight bias towards yourself in situations that are high stakes, especially knowing that you won't face any repercussions if you can hide it. When the tier list split though, she was tier 1 in a few main game modes and tier 2 in the rest, which is mainly sword based game modes. Over time, she's managed to go on a PvP arc and has gone tier 1 in every single game mode, which is very impressive and the first person to ever do this. However, this is exactly where those recent clips of her allegedly cheating have surfaced, of her doing pretty freaking suspicious things. In regards to her cheating, it's entirely possible that she's been a legit player for the majority of her Minecraft career, where she's mained Crystal PvP and stuff, but started using cheats where she wanted to get tier 1 in every game mode, where she could use easily hideable cheats to give an advantage in beating better players. These would be cheats that cannot be detected by an anti-cheat because they'd all be possible to do as a legit player, which makes sense because if they're trying to closet cheat, you can do anything that could give you away immediately. Marlow has a massive reputation, so this is especially true for her. Another thing to note is that Marlow never plays on other servers. She's never spotted playing on other PvP servers, SMPs, or even tournaments outside of MC PvP Club, the server that she now owns, which is especially suspicious considering the amount of PvP tournaments she's missed, especially Crystal, in the past. This could all be excused by the fact that she's had the trauma of having her IP doxed and stuff like that, which would definitely make you think twice. Anyways, enough yapping, let's get into the clips. There's 3 main clips that have been going around YouTube of Marlow allegedly cheating, and this is the strongest evidence surrounding the allegations right now. The first clip is in a diamond pot tier test against pig ears. In this part of the test, she does some weird head movements. This is not really evidence, however, as she was probably just doing some flicks. The next part, however, is a lot worse. In this part, she somehow manages to eat a steak while hitting her opponent and then finishes the steak. The audio isn't edited either, and as you can clearly see, her hand is in the eating animation for the entire time. Hitting a player while eating food in Minecraft is 100% impossible to do legit. So according to this evidence, Marlow's 100% on some sort of cheat. However, there's a critical thing to note that could completely debunk this. In between eating, when Marlow hits her opponent, the eating sound pauses for a tiny bit before finishing. And according to Swat's comment that mentions that this was a bug to do with an eating optimizer mod, which by the way he deleted this comment after a few days of the drama. But anyway, Minecraft sounds don't pause like this in between eating, so it's possible that with the eating optimizer mod, it shows on Piggy's screen that she's eating food, but when in reality she never actually was eating food, and it never actually registered on the server at all. However, this is debatable. We don't know for sure if Piggy was actually using an eating optimizer mod, and we also don't know whether the food Marlow ate was actually food or just a bug. You can usually tell if someone starts healing that food has been eaten actually worked, but because of her throwing potions and the regeneration 1 effect that you can get in Diamond Pot, it's impossible to tell in this clip. We also have to take into account that Marlow has no need to use a cheat like this. She would never need this cheat because eating is easy in Diamond Pot, and her having the cheat would just be a dead giveaway that she's cheating, which someone who actually closet cheats would never actually do. Even if we ignore this, the fact that the sound animation of the food eating paused and the food's delay, which would not happen with food eating cheats, shows even more likely that this was probably a glitch to do with the optimizer mod, instead of Marlow using an eating cheat. However, this all depends on whether PvPer was actually using an eating optimizer mod, which the only person who said that he was Swite, who's not PvPer. The verdict could also change depending on if hitting a player while using an eating optimizer mod actually pauses the sound. I can't test this myself because there's plenty of cheat clients out there and I don't know which one Marlow would use. However, despite this clip being picky, I would still assume that it's more likely than not that Marlow's not cheating in this clip. It's simply stupid for Marlow if she was a closet cheater to use a useless cheat that's impossible to do in regular Minecraft, where she would just be caught in an instant. The next clip we have though is a lot harder to explain. And that was a lot of explaining just then. This clip is a Swite versus Marlow duel. Not a tier test, but just for fun. You can see in the clip they exchange hits, but Marlow unexpectedly pops her totem after failing to pop for some reason. You can then see Marlow flicking her head to the left and right a lot, looking down on the ground before immediately flicking backwards towards Swite and then back to the ground, doing a full 360 in the process before looking down to Pot, doing 3 pots before immediately looking back at Swite, where one potion flies away because of the flick before Marlow looks at Swite and swings her sword frantically before dying. This is probably the most suspicious clip of Marlow going around right now, because it very well looks like she's trying to pot up, but fighting against some sort of aim assist that's making her look back at Swite since he's in hitting range. In examples of cheaters other people gave in their analyses, it matches a lot with actual cheating behavior. This is pretty clearly cheating. However, when you take a closer look and take the context of the clip into perspective, things change a lot. You can see that when she first starts moving her head a lot, she isn't throwing any potions, probably because she didn't have any in her hotbar. This could be her fighting against her aim assist, but also might not be, although I don't have an explanation for why she would flick her head so much before potting. There really is no defense for something like that for that behavior. It is possible that because Marlow was losing 3-1 by Swite and the next round would be a loss, that she might just be crashing out a bit and throwing. But this behavior is barely ever existing in pros when it comes to throwing. Most players who throw a game usually take off their armor or just leave the game or something like that, usually because they want to stop the discomfort of losing as fast as possible. But Marlow flicking a lot, but still trying to pot and then fight back doesn't look like throwing at all. And the only thing this behavior could possibly be is venting your anger by flicking your mouse around a lot. Yeah, this doesn't make a lot of sense, because this is pretty hard to defend if you actually look into it. But after the flicks, she quickly clicks 3 pots into her inventory. One is supposedly strength, the next was a health pot, and the last pot was thrown away because of her hard flick. It's important to mention that Marlow has incredibly good aim, and if she wanted to continue fighting, she would never over flick the pot like this and end up throwing the pot all the way over there and then looking back at Swite immediately. Unless, of course, there was something messing with her aim. Another thing to note is that when she flicks back, she swaps to her sword, then to her hand, then starts swinging with nothing to her hand before switching to the sword. This is, however, probably her accidentally mispressing a key, because she did just throw 3 pots in the span of like 150 milliseconds. We then see her trying to fight back by pressing W and pushing forward, but she doesn't realize that since she isn't potted up well enough until it's too late, she dies before putting on her second totem. Another thing to note is that if she was choosing to sell the round, a semi-common thing people would do is spam click to show weakness to their opponent before dying, which is also a pretty easy way to tell in gameplay if someone is just selling the round. Marlow does not do this though, as she has the intention to keep fighting, but just forgot to heal. Pretty much all players who choose to sell the game fully commit to dying and also make it kind of obvious, but Marlow looks like she fights between the thing that looks like choking and her trying to clutch up and survive, instead of fully committing to a loss or fully committing to the attack. Overall, this entire clip is suspicious. One strong thing to note though is that the clips of actual cheaters doing the same thing are different, because they instantly flick back and hit the opponent, while Marlow's flicks were a lot more smooth and didn't feel nearly as locked to Swite hitbox as those clips of cheaters. It is possible though that she fought her aim assist for a second and then just used a keybind to turn off the aim assist to hopefully not dig herself a deeper hole as soon as she started losing control, but I don't know for sure. The idea that she was just throwing the game though, it was a pretty hard to believe defense, because the act of flicking your mouse around out of range to vent anger for only like 1 second before potting up and then continuing to fight is very rare, and Marlow is usually the type of person to always be calm in fights. Although because it is not a tier fight and they are friends, it is possible to an extent that Marlow was just being humorous. But if she was, she probably would have shook her mouse a lot more or done something more obvious to vent silliness or anger, whatever, and not just do that. One thing to note though is that this level of flicking does not look much like expressing anger through Minecraft, because she's simply doing it too little. It just looks like a bunch of random weird flicks before doing a 360 and then trying to pot up again. Either way, doing a 360 towards SWAT and back around to the floor to pot up, and then over flicking your aim when you throw a pot, for a person like Marlow is very suspicious, who both has very good aim to not over flick, but also has no real explanation for doing a random 360 when Marlow has hundreds of hours of gameplay, when she's learned through muscle memory to just pot up immediately onto the ground when you get popped. Overall, whether you think this was a choke or is indeed cheating, it's very hard to say that she's certainly using aimbot because of the potential defenses. If you look at the big picture of the clip though, the defense that she flicked on purpose is pretty hard to believe. But the idea that it being aimbot also does not 100% match up to how other cheaters look with it. It's possible that she is using a type of aim assist that allows her to flick to the side easily and also lock back to targets, but it's hard to say. This is a complex clip with a lot of factors if you really analyze it. Overall, the behavior is really unorthodox though for a pro player, and really does look more likely than not that she's losing control of her aim instead of choking by choice. Because this is such an unusual and uncommon way to show that they are choking, but also still trying to recover. It's pretty weird. Overall, if I was forced to give my opinion on this, I would say that more likely than not she's using some kind of aim assist in this clip. This is still pretty debatable and is more opinion based than it is 100% provable. After analyzing everything about this clip though, it just seems more likely that something was messing with her aim. Unless Marlow herself has some sort of magical explanation that she can tell us about why she did that, there's really no way to defend herself in this situation. Anyway, the next clip that's been blowing up is in an SMP tier test with Marlow and Legendary. In the clip, she pearls in front of him, where then she magically somehow disables his shield by looking away from him in the other direction, which is very suspicious. You can't even argue that due to latency, Marlow is actually behind Legendary in order for the hit to line up, because after the hit, Marlow doesn't end up behind Legendary, she's still in front of him and then just ends up flicking back. However, this clip can be debunked by the fact that Marlow instantly flicks towards Legendary right after the shield stun. Minecraft heads don't instantly flick around when it comes to like another player seeing that person's head. They do take time. They take a little bit of latency because it's not, see how I can see the back of my head half the time? This is what I mean. But yeah, the fact that Marlow instantly flicked back afterwards could be a sign of slight latency, but I'm not very certain about this verdict. It's also possible that Marlow on her screen due to latency was phasing through Legendary's hitbox, which is how she was able to hit a stun while looking the other way, because in reality she thought she was hitting a backstab, but I kinda doubt this because both players are playing below 30 ping, and latency causing an effect like this would only happen on ping like higher than 100. This clip refers to latency behavior that I'm not very knowledgeable about, I'm gonna be honest, so the interpretation is more so up to you. I'm just going to say that the verdict of this clip is undefined because I can't give a clear verdict on whether it's clearly kill aura or hitboxes or clearly a server issue. You would just have to assume she's cheating or has some insane flicks, which to be fair, she does. This also happens twice, by the way, in this 1 tier test, so take what you will with that information. One thing I also want to mention is that I don't think Marlow uses any shield stunning cheats. With a double-clicking mouse, hitting shield stuns is very easy to do once you get some experience, and with hundreds of hours of experience like Marlow does, and probably some single-player practice too, we don't know, any pro player can hit some stuns like that very consistently. One thing I'm a little skeptical about though is how she always hits stuns and you never really see her miss, you never really see her slap a shield. It's always a stun through the shield. What I think is more suspicious though is her stun slams. Marlow has perfect one-tick stun slams that happen very often, pretty much 100% of the time. Even in Crystal you can see it happen when she's elytring with ease. This is very suspicious as it's almost impossible to be able to do it so often without any failures. The only other person who can one-tick stun slam as consistently as Marlow is Rapture, who's also allegedly a cheater who has even more evidence against him. But I won't talk about him in this video. I'm just saying that if her stuns and stun slams are this perfect, it's possible to consider that she could be macroing too. However, this is alleged and she could just be really lucky. But if someone could compile me like a video of every time Marlow has failed a stun slam mechanics wise, like where she just slaps the shield and doesn't manage to hit it or just fails it, then you should send me it. Because if there's more than 5, then this would kind of be debunked. But if you can't even find me 5 clips of her failing a stun slam, then yeah, it's pretty suspicious. This next clip is the last popular clip that we have. This clip shows Marlow in a fight with Flowtives, where when she gets hit, she somehow gets flung to the right. This completely breaks Minecraft's physics. However, there is an explanation for this. Like Swag commented about, knockback displacement could be the reason why this happened. Basically, knockback displacement is where you look in a different direction, then flick back to your opponent, swing and hit them. But due to ping, the server thinks you hit the user in the direction you were looking at before you flicked. Remember back in the first clip how I talked about how Marlow was doing weird flicks on pig ears? Well, it turns out it was to knock pig ears in the other direction to get herself out of being backed against a wall. And this is what happened in this SMP clip with Flowtives too. As you can see, Flow was looking in the other direction, then he flicks back to do a 180 and hits Marlow. But because Flowtives had 30 ping, he managed to hit Marlow when the server thought he was looking left, right about here, which is how Marlow was flung in that exact direction. It turns out Flowtives just accidentally used knockback displacement on Marlow. However, this clip doesn't explain Rapture trying the same thing, where he looks like he was just hit with a knockback 3 sword. I'm not going to make a video on Rapture because clips like these kind of tell the story for you. Those are the main 4 clips with the most evidence of Marlow hackusating. Other clips are just normal issues with ping latency or other things like assuming some good aim is aimbot. Whether you believe Marlow is cheating or not, these clips do speak for themselves. Although Marlow was likely not cheating if you take a deeper look into the first and 4th clip, the 2nd and 3rd clip still show pretty suspicious play. There is a low chance that Marlow was just messing with her aim on purpose in the Nethpot clip, and also a chance that the headspin delay is the reason why Marlow was able to register hits while looking in the opposite direction, but the chances are very low. It's simply more likely than not that Marlow was using cheats in those clips, according to the logic. Keep in mind that Marlow is still allegedly cheating, and this video does not assume that she is certainly cheating. It's entirely possible that she isn't cheating and that there are explanations for the suspicious clips, but according to the logic, it's just more likely that she is cheating than not. Keep in mind that this is all my opinion and that my understanding and logic regarding Minecraft is strong, but not 100%. Either way, thanks for watching and peace.